Before we get into things, I have special thanks to some generous friends and subscribers who have so far helped me raise $205 to replace my broken computer. If you haven't already, and you are willing to help this channel get back to its full and in-depth content, I have placed the fundraiser link in the description. Any amount that you are able and willing to donate is greatly appreciated. Also, I'm intentionally shooting this video vertically due to the dimensions of my lightbox, which I originally picked up just for minifigure scale photography, which obviously doesn't require as much width. If I had shot this in horizontal, it was going to leave a little bit of the snap together plastic bits on the side, which I don't think looks as good. So I'm choosing to shoot vertically to give it a little bit better of an appearance. Anyway, let's do this. Today we are looking at Bionicle set 8986 Vastus. He released in 2009 for $12.99 US. Now, while this is still sealed, the canister is pretty obviously suffering from some heavy shelf wear. I actually got him for a great price due to the wear and tear. As you can see though, the top part of the plastic here is sort of coming off. There's a lot of obvious fading and wrinkling primarily on the front. This doesn't bother me as much because, heresy, I know, I actually don't keep the canisters. They just wind up being additional storage space that I can't really afford in the houses I've lived in the past. But the front, what we can make out here, we've got Vastus himself, we've got the Glatorian Legends logo, and we've got some just general jungle-looking backdrops, as well as here in the back, what is a big labyrinth, although it may just look like some neat white lines from what you can tell. Now, the backside of the canister's a little bit better off. Obviously, it's not quite as faded, not as beaten here. You can see the other Glatorian Legends he released alongside of as part of the second wave of that year. You can also see a demonstration of his launcher. You can see the piece that lets you use the Glatorian basically in a combat game against each other. You can see it's telling you to store him inside the canister, which, I mean, you know, I'm not going to be doing. And you can see this bio code, which back in the day when Bionicle's website was up and functioning, you could put that in and it would give you some membership rewards, stickers basically for your profile on there. Now, since the box itself is pretty obviously fugly, I'm going to go ahead and get this opened up before we go into any more details. I think that's everything. Before we go too far, I do want to take a quick look at the instructions here in the video. Obviously, this is a much better look at his design there from the front of the canister since this has been sealed and not fading. Now, it is interesting to note that it does appear to have just a teensy little bit of spotting. On the back, we can see some other stuff from the era. I remember when these were all big things. This was one of the bigger Beast sets that had released early in the year for Bionicle. I particularly remember how Clone Wars Yoda was pretty cute in LEGO as compared to most of their eyes, which were a little creepy. And here on the police car, we can actually see a little bit of the spotting from the front carries on in the back on the white. Now inside, it looks to me like it's all going to be pretty decent quality because it was closed in there. It does advise you to not build it in the grass, which I've always found hilarious. And here is the completed Vastus. As you can see, he actually has a very long scythe as his weapon, with a launcher on the other end. Now, Vastus is the first Bionicle I've ever picked up from 2009. See, by those final 2 years of Bionicle's original run, 2009 and 2010, I was at the age as a teenager where I was worried my father would find it weird if I was still buying stuff like this. I very much was still interested in these, but I just never got to buy any back then. And that's a shame, too, because that year of Bionicle, there was just some interesting stuff that they did. We had some build changes. Instead of a mask that the character would wear on the front of their face, these are helmets that they wear up on top of their head is where that pins in. Additionally, there are molded fingers for the first time, which are used really well in sets like this, where there's actually a reverse grip the way you would probably want to hold one in this stance. I do think those are really neat, although in his case, his weapon does limit posability a little bit with his arms, just because they, have to go together. Also, despite all the new changes, I do have to say, this was the same basic body type that we'd been seeing since the Toa Inika in 2006. So this is 3 years on, and though it's being used a little differently, it's still the same type that we had seen a few times already. So that is a little bit of a shame. But it's a very cool set all in all. Vastus just really visually looks dynamic. He looks very different than a lot of the others. As any spectacle fighter would want cool armor, he has this cool molding that looks like a combination of snakes and vines going across. I really love the winding bit here in the middle of his scythe, which sort of carries on up there towards the blade molded in. And he's also the only one out of that wave who really integrates the launcher in a specific and unique way. Most of them just held it, but it's actually a part of his weapon. As you can see here, the explosive fruit that they used at the end fires by squeezing it. Similar to the disc launcher that 2004 Bionicle used, but much smaller, so I think it works a little bit better. It just ties in a little bit more cohesively. And so, without further ado, that brings us to Bionicle action figure game, which is the reason why they have a life bar basically built into a dial on the back of the figures. Let me just read this to you. This game is about taking the life of your opponent before he takes yours. Jesus Christ, LEGO, that's actually really violent. More so, the Glatorian aren't actually supposed to be murdering each other. They fight in spectacle fights in the arena because they're hired on and the fights are to settle disputes. But this game clearly wants blood. So, it gives you a good setup for the game, and it explains everything here across a few pages. You set up the characters and their canisters across from each other. If you shoot the canister, you lose 1 hit point, and if you shoot the figure, you lose 2 hit points. And after you shoot, the ball lands somewhere and you move your character there, presumably to make it easier for the other opponent to shoot. And then the last person to take all the life points away, setting the dial to skull, meaning death, wins. I'm not sure they thought this one through quite as well as they could have, because again, holy crap, it's just about murdering each other until you get to set it to death. Now, I don't know, maybe it'll be fun. Let's set it up here. I'm going to need to use him for the launcher since I don't have any other Glatorian, so I'm going to swap him out for a Rockshi, and we'll just give this a go to see what happens. Also, I'm not sure why shooting the canister should do damage. I think the canister in the first place just shouldn't be a part of the game at all. It's too easy a target. It's just strange. It doesn't make any sense in continuity. Now, just a figure alone, that I think makes a little more sense. Let's see if I can hit the Rockshi and see if I miss him or not. Nope, I hit him. And according to that, it actually landed here, so now I'm even closer, and it's going to be even easier for me to hit him in the future. Now, of course, the dial itself actually stays in place really well for this game. It has a very clear top and bottom. I'm probably not demonstrating it too well. But you can turn it around until the point of death. Anyway, in conclusion, that is Vastus, my first Glatorian from the 2009 lineup. I think this is pretty fun. I really think they had a lot of interesting design ideas, and I really like how visually interesting this figure is. I think there's probably some room for improvement, but considering this was an 11-year-old figure, it's not really that necessary to go into the details. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like and leave a comment down below if you did enjoy everything. I'm still very new at the unboxing and reviews, so feel free to critique me down there as well. Keep an eye out for other stuff. Again, if you'd be willing to donate to the fundraiser so I can get to more in-depth stuff. The sooner I have a new computer, the sooner I can get back to the stuff I love. Anyway, thanks for watching.